Hi Tadeo, how are you? Are you guys here in Australia or are you in Brazil? Sorry if I asked you before. I've got very bad memory. Can you guys hear me all right? Yes, you are in Australia. Hey there, good. Whereabouts in Australia? Yeah, all is good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I believe that there is a little bit of delay. I think there is probably anything between 8 to 15 seconds delay when we broadcast live. So sometimes I ask the question and then understand that you guys will just get the question probably 15 seconds later. So you're here in Brisbane, Tadeo. That's good. And what sort of engineers are you? Are you guys civil engineers, mechanical engineers, chemical, industrial, petroleum, production, naval architects? Yeah, civil engineer. So you are a profession colleague of me, Ada. I'm also a civil engineer. Yeah. Yeah, well, enjoying this time. Yeah, thanks, Ada. The time to watch the videos and study about validation. Yeah, it's a very good use of the time. Obviously, with this crisis, some people have a little bit more time because things are closed, etc. I understand it's difficult times, but as they say here in Australia, from a lemon, you probably need to try to make a lemonade. So you can't really change too much of what's happening. So why not taking the opportunity of the time and study about your validation process, study about other things until things get a little bit better. And one advantage of being a qualified engineer is that majority of the engineers that I know, they are all working. I am working still. As I said before, I work with roads, infrastructure, maintenance, construction, and our projects, they are, as they say here in Australia, they are full steam. Full steam means a todo vapor. So I was working pretty much up until 10 minutes ago. I just stopped to do this live session, and I'll probably have to work a little bit more after I finish. Although I'm working from home, I'm just going to share you guys. That's my arrangement here for my working from home. Got my computer, a couple of screens, and my iPad and everything. So I'm working from home while I can, and I go to the office once a week. I go to the sites as well once or twice a week because I'm in a management position, so I can afford to stay a little bit more time at home. But my other friends that are all engineers, they're all working construction works, and a lot of the manufacturing works here in Australia. Food engineer, there is a food engineer. I believe that all food companies, they working very, very hard to make sure that there's no shortage of food. Probably the industry now is getting better because people stay at home. They tend to eat more. So that's one advantage of being a qualified and recognized engineer in Australia, because in these hard times you can still be working. Yeah. All right. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I've got some party balloons at the back. Can you guess why do I have some party balloons at the back on my banner? Let's see if you can guess. Why do I have party balloons on my banner? I was trying to find other things, but I couldn't really find, so what I found was just the party balloons. Any guess? No one guessing? No? Don't have an idea? Yeah, well, this time last year, looks like that TV program, this time last year was actually Monday, but we were busy Tuesday with a live session with Juan, so I left for today. But on Monday, the 20th of April, it marked 1 year that I created my website, www.engineersinaustralia.com. So I started working, I think it was on the 18th of April when I started to build my website. And on the 20th of April was when I launched the website. I recorded my first video in YouTube and published in YouTube. If you go there, my channel, if you see, I think my first video, it's just a short video talking about the pathways of the validation. Was just about 2.5 minutes, but that was my first video that I recorded. Was upstairs here in my place, and my daughter, she was even very embarrassed. She's saying, "Oh, Daddy, are you going to publish that video?" Because the video was, comparing to some of the videos that I do today, they're fairly ordinary. But that was the first video, and just yesterday I was just double checking how many views I had in that video, and that video had 957 or 43 views. So it's very, very rewarding for me knowing that almost 1,000 people watched my video. Nowadays I've got 77 videos published. The public videos, 77 public videos in my YouTube channel, and I've got another probably I've got in my Vimeo account, I've got another 60 videos that they are closed just for my students of the mentoring program, and I also got in YouTube probably another 15 videos that are for my students as well. So all up I've got almost 150 videos already that I published. So yeah, if I think today, 1 year ago, how I started, as you probably know, you probably heard my story. I started just to help Brazilian engineers, and originally was just Brazilian engineers, so my first videos are all in Portuguese. My website, the main page, is in Portuguese. I'm trying to make some videos now, well, majority of videos in my website I'm now doing in English. One, because potentially can help your English learning as well, although my English is not, I'm not a native speaker, but I think in a situation where we and I consider myself as well as an overseas engineer. The more you practice, better you ended up becoming in a foreign language. And for us, certainly English is very important to learn. So, yeah, thanks, Fran. More power, yes. So I was trying to find my little birthday hat, but I couldn't find it. My daughter, she's already 12, so we don't probably have those party hats, but I found some party balloons. So 1 year of my website and 1 year in my project. So it's I think it's a very good effort. And this live, I think it's probably number 42, I think. So 42 weeks pretty much doing live sessions every week. Is, well, 1 year has got 52 weeks, so it's a lot of weeks doing live sessions and sharing a lot of information with you guys. So yeah, happy birthday to us, because you guys are my audience. If you guys are not there, I'm not here. So happy birthday to us. 12 months, yeah, 1 year. Happy birthday, Engineers Australia. And I hope that you guys can keep feeding me with content with your audience, so I can keep going, recording my videos, doing these live sessions, running these free workshops, so I can share my knowledge and help you guys. And today is going to be really interesting, because over the past, well, today is day number 9, so today is the 9th day of the 11 days of engineering qualification validation workshop, which is my free workshop that I started Wednesday last week, and today is day 9. And in these 9 days I got really a lot of questions. People sent me questions in the Facebook posts, they sent me questions in my Telegram group, they sent me questions in my SurveyMonkey questionnaire, they sent me questions during the webinars that I had, they sent me questions by email. So I did a compilation of the questions, and today I'm going to be answering some of those questions. I believe I was trying to count, but there is, I think, probably around 30, 35, 40 questions. So there's a lot of questions. So today I'm going to use half of the session to answer some of the questions, and the other half I'm going to again choose somebody in the audience and give a 15-minute free consulting services, so you can expose and talk about your particular case, and I can discuss with you. And also then the other ones that are not participating, they will be certainly benefiting of the discussion, because your question could be somebody else's question. So just so you know the topics that we're going to be talking today, the questions, there are a lot of questions under each topic, but the topics will be academic studies, career episodes, CDR process, consulting services, cost, what about CPEng, RPQ and RPEng, CPD, continuing professional development, about the engineering associate or technician, about English test, about experiences, about expiry date, about the International Engineering Alliance, about jobs, networking, pathways for validation, processing times, the relevant skilled employment assessment, stage 1 of membership, summary statement, and I'm going to give a little bit of statistics in the end of the types of engineers or engineering that are interested in this content here. So, and if you have any questions, particular question, you can type in the comments, or if you want to really discuss and have the opportunity to get these 15-minute free consulting services, I believe that there is a button somewhere that you can actually request to be live with me. So if you touch that button, you will be in the queue, and then after I finish with the question and answers, I will be choosing somebody to share with me the live session, and we will discuss that particular case. So the first question about academic studies. If I do a master's degree, will my certificate be validated? That's a very good question. If you do a master's degree that is validated by Engineers Australia, your master's degree will then be validated by Engineers Australia. However, it does not mean that you will be validated as an engineer. Oh, Jerson, that's a bit confusing. Especially if you are applying for the migration skills assessment. If you are validating your qualification because you want to apply for a visa, and I can tell that because I asked Engineers Australia, they say that the migration skills assessment is done considering your graduation, your undergraduate degree, your bachelor degree, not a master's degree. So if you have graduated in a country that your degree is not recognized here in Australia and you just did a master's which is qualified, you can recognize your master, but you still need to recognize your bachelor degree that you completed in an overseas country. The other question is about the qualifications in Brazil. Are they the same here in Australia? Well, this question could be even qualifications done in overseas countries. Are they the same here in Australia? Particularly, well, from Brazil, they are not the same. When they are the same, they are usually recognized. And the International Engineering Alliance, they've got the Washington Accord, which has a country of a list of about 25 signatory countries, and within each country there will be universities that are accredited by Engineers Australia. So those courses, they are then the same, but if your university, if your course is not in that list, and if the country signed the accord, if you graduated before the country signed that accord, your degree is not really recognized, so it's not the same. So the other question is about the career episodes. How do I start writing my episodes for the CDR, Competency Demonstration Report? So that's a very general question or generic question. How do I start writing my episodes? Well, first of all, you certainly need to read what's the definition of your occupation according to the ANZ SEO classification. And then once you understand that classification, you gotta go back to your experience, either academic or work experience, and try to see which experience, academic or work, can fit according to the ANZ SEO definition of your occupation. So once you choose your experience, then you gotta go and you gotta read, there's no way out, you gotta read the Migration Skills Assessment booklet of the Engineers Australia. You gotta read that, that's going to be your Bible. You gotta read the section that talks about the career episodes, the 3 career episodes. You have 4 sections in each career episode: your introduction, your background, your personal engineering activity, and your summary. And then in each of these sections, it's written in the booklet what you gotta write, what you need to address, and that's how you pretty much start writing your career episodes. Obviously, it's much more complex than that, but the objective of the live today is not to give you a step-by-step of the career episodes, so just an overall view. The other question about career episodes is, how should I prove my experiences in Brazil, or in Colombia, or in Mexico, or in Chile, or in Philippines, or in other country that is not recognized? So first of all, you got to make sure that you understand, when you read the summary statement of the Migration Skills Assessment booklet of Engineers Australia, you got to make sure that you understand every single of the 16 competencies. So that's how you prove. You prove your experience by addressing each of the 16 competencies that are required by Engineers Australia, and they are in the summary statement of the occupational category that you chose. Sorry. The other question is about tips for write career episodes. So what are the tips to write career episodes? Well, to write career episodes, there's a lot of tips. There's a lot of steps that you gotta do. The live today was going to be too complex, but if I can give you a tip to write the career episode, the most important one is for you to make sure that you choose the right experience. Choosing the right experience is fundamental for you to be successful in your career episodes. Doesn't matter if you write a very good career episode, if it's not the right experience, it's not going to work. The other topic about CDR process, it says here, what are the most difficult points to understand in the CDR process? Well, in my opinion, for someone that did the CDR process, I did myself. For someone that has already reviewed a lot of career episodes, and currently I don't review anymore, but I'm helping a lot of engineers, especially those ones in my mentoring group. The most difficult part is probably the summary statement. To write a proper summary statement that will have a very solid content in matching each of the 16 competencies. The career episodes obviously it's hard to write because you've got to write between 1,000 and 2,500 words. So, and writing usually is not the engineer's strength. Well, at least it's not mine. It could be yours, but and if you are not very strong at writing, please write not me. So I'll probably start. I'll put what I think I am. So I say not me because I'm really not very strong in writing. So I'd like to hear from you guys. Are you guys very strong in writing, or are you not very strong in writing? Oh yeah, Danielle, not me. Fair, not me. Oh, well, you're not alone. You can see that. Anna, not me. Oh yeah, not alone. So, in the summary statement also, you will need to write quite a lot in your summary statement. So that's why I believe is one of the hardest document in the CDR process. One, because you need to address each of the 16 competencies. And you gotta number each paragraph, you gotta match that competency to the experiences in your career episode. So that's where probably a lot of engineers they struggle. So I'd say that the most difficult point to understand in the CDR process is the summary statement. Yeah, Fran is saying, yeah, not me. Erica saying, not me, but she did a lot in the past. Well, you may have some advantage there, Erica, because if you've done a lot in the past, it's probably like riding a bicycle. You will pick up again. Yeah, Daniel saying neither in Portuguese. Well, me too. I think I failed in redação many times in school. The other the other question about CDR process is it better to validate in Brazil before coming to Australia, or come to Australia and then validate? So that's a question that somebody that is in Brazil, and that person asked me, Jason, should I validate the qualification here in Brazil and then go to Australia, or should I go to Australia and validate the qualification there? So in my opinion, obviously that depends on each person's situation, but if you are in Brazil or in Colombia or in your country and still working as an engineer, you're having your income, you are producing engineering services, and you don't really have issues in staying in your home country, I would probably suggest you to do your validation process while you are in Brazil. Obviously, there are pros and cons. Certainly, if you come to Australia and then you do your validation process, there's always pros and cons as well. But if you are in Brazil working as an engineer, you're already making some money, and but you gotta have discipline, because in Brazil or in Colombia or in your own country, you have to improve your English, and you have to study English, and you have to be very disciplined to study. You have to be very disciplined to spare some time to prepare your documentation, to start writing your reports. And when you are in your home country, you will have a lot of distractions, because all of your friends are there, your family is there, you have a social life, you got a life that is different from when you're here. Not that when you're here you don't have a social life, but it's different. Here you can be a little bit more focused on the validation process. So either way, if you are very disciplined and if you are willing to study a lot of English in your home country, perhaps it's a good idea to do while you are in your home country, because you are having some income, and currently you can't really come here anyway. So I don't know until when the borders are going to be closed, but the borders are closed, so you don't really have an option. So you can stay there and start studying the process, start studying English. I don't know how is the restrictions in your own country, but there's a lot of online courses as well to improve your English, and even free conversation. There's a lot of people that they do free English conversation that you can at least improve a little bit your speaking and your listening. Grammar, unfortunately, you have to study. Another question that is fairly common, and I had a lot of people asking me in the last week or so, would you help at the end of the writing to review in the written material if the written material is in the correct Engineers Australia format? So that person was actually asking for a consulting services, and I replied that I don't provide consulting services. Not that I don't want to. I probably would make a lot of money if I chose to do, but I work full time. I work already anything between 45 and 50 hours a week, so my available spare time is not a lot. and the spare time that I have to dedicate also to my family. I have to look after the house, and also I'm dedicating a lot of time in this project. So I don't really have a lot of time. So I cannot commit with something that I will not be able to deliver. And committing to a consulting service with an individual or an engineer, it will mean that I'll have to put aside about 20 to 30 hours in a space of 1 month or two, which I currently don't have. So I don't do consulting services. Also, if I do it, it probably would cost a little bit of money, because obviously if I stop working to do this, I gotta charge for the time, and it could cost anything between $5,000 to $8,000, which I believe is a lot of money for you guys to pay anyway. So I don't really suggest and recommend you guys to pay that amount of money, especially because any consulting services, you still gotta write everything. So whoever is giving you consulting is going to give information, is going to probably do a little bit of mentoring and tell you what you need to do, and you still got to do it, because if you don't do it, you incur in plagiarism, and you don't want to do that. The next question is about cost. A lot of people ask me how much does it cost for the validation. I just checked the Engineers Australia website just before now, and the CDR, all prices are excluded GST. So if you are outside of Australia, it doesn't have GST, but if you are in Australia, you got to include 10% GST. So for the standard application, it's $795. If you want to do the standard CDR plus the relevant skills employment assessment, is $1,155. If you want to do a fast track, it's $305. If your application is not approved, then you're going to review your application. The informal review costs you $285. In the formal appeal, if your informal review is not successful, you can formally appeal, and then it costs you $540. So that's Engineers Australia's fee. Hey Gerson, yeah, but other than the Engineers Australia fees, how much will I spend? Well, you got to spend with your English test. I'm not sure how much is the English test. I heard that it's... Anybody knows how much is the English test? IELTS, TOEFL, or PTE? I heard it was about $200 and something, or $250 or $300. And then you gotta spend some money in document translation as well. You will need to translate quite a few documents, so you will have to spend some money in translating documents as well. Hi Nicholas, he's saying about $250. Wow, $250, about 30, nearly 40%. Yeah, 330 now, probably Aussie dollars. Wow. Yeah, but that's what you gotta pay. The other question, interesting, and I say that in my webinars, and I say that probably in my videos as well. Just about my videos, if you watch my video, if you like my video, one of the 3 videos or the 3 videos that I released Saturday, Monday and Wednesday, give me a thumbs up if you watch the video and you like the video. The other questions about CPEng, RPEQ or RPEng, a lot of acronyms. CPEng means Chartered Professional Engineer, that's for Engineers Australia. RPEng is Registered Professional Engineer from Professionals Australia, which is another organization similar to Engineers Australia. And RPEQ is Registered Professional Engineer of Queensland. That's just for the Queensland one. Engineers Australia fees by year, like CREA. Yes, it's a yearly fee, so you pay yearly. Yeah, if you elect to be a member of Engineers Australia, you gotta pay yearly. But that's separate of that assessment. So the CDR assessment is how much did I say? $795. That's for the assessment. So once you are approved, if your qualification is approved, then you gotta apply for the membership. A membership, I think it's another $200 or $300, and then that membership you gotta then pay yearly. And the question about CP is, what do I study to become a CP well, in terms of study, to become CP a Chartered Professional Engineer from Engineers Australia, I became a Chartered Professional Engineer, I think it was back in 2010. So you have to demonstrate that you have a continuing professional development of 150 hours in the last 3 years. So in the last 3 years, you gotta have 150 hours of continuing professional development, and they've got different categories to become a CP. You've got different categories of CPD, and some of the categories, they've got limits. For example, the events, the professional development that you do while you are at work, there is a limit of number of hours that you can accrue in those 3 years. If you are doing, let's say, a qualified, a certificate 3 or certificate 4, diploma, advanced diploma, masters, etc., the number of hours is unlimited. Studying, you don't study a course to become a CP. CP is about, again, proving. They've got Engineers Australia, they've got another 16 competencies that you need to demonstrate. Those competencies, they are different from the competencies of the validation process. They are slightly higher level. So you got to demonstrate and address those 16 competencies. You got to do some self-assessment. You got to have a peer review, and then a national assessor will be evaluating your application. You will have probably an interview or phone conversation with the national assessor, and then the national assessor of Engineers Australia will make a decision if they approve or not your application as a Chartered Professional Engineer. And when you are considered a Chartered Professional Engineer, it's because you're considered as an engineer that can work autonomously. I've got probably going to do another few questions, and then I'm going to choose somebody in the audience because we're getting already to 38 minutes. Oh, wow. So, engineering associate. Do you have information about building technician validation? So that's a question that somebody that came from Brazil, and that person is technical in edificações or building technician. So what's the information? Well, when you apply for technician in here is engineering associate, depending on the course, you can either do with VETACES or with Engineers Australia. So it's a good idea to ask for a migration agent. This is my qualification. Should I do with VETACES or should I do with Engineers Australia? The session that we had with Carlo Castriota, the migration agent, he said that I think that the draftsperson, the civil engineering draftsperson, can be done with either Engineers Australia and VETACES, and I believe that the technician can just be done with the VETACES. So it's a good idea to double check with a migration agent so they can confirm which assessment body is the one that we'll be doing. There's a question about, people ask about English test. What's the easiest English test? Well, I don't know. When I did mine, I just had IELTS. And fortunately, when I came to Australia, my English level was already good. So when I did my IELTS after a few months in Australia, I think I got average of 7.5. So I did some preparation in terms of trying to understand IELTS test, how it works, etc. But I was fortunate that I studied English back in Brazil when I worked in companies that English was the language, and I also studied in Japan and France, so I was fortunate that my English was already good. Some people say that the PT is easier, other people say that they prefer IELTS. I don't know, unfortunately I don't know. The other question about English is, and that's a very good question, guys. They asked, can I start the validation process without having the minimum English test score? So that's a very good question. A lot of people, and some of you probably that watched my video number 2, one of the 7 mistakes that I list in that video is that people think that first they gotta get the minimum of 6 and then start the validation process, which I classify that as a mistake. Because sometimes when you get your English test, if you start your validation process after you get your English minimum score, it will mean, because it takes time for the validation process, it will mean that once you get your English minimum test score, you will spend then another, I don't know, month or a couple of months or a few months until you can finish all your documentation, your reports and everything. So I'd say that if you have an intermediate English level, I strongly encourage you to start your validation process before you actually sit the English exam. One, because when you are writing your reports, when you are researching about your career episodes, when you are drafting your career episodes, you're actually studying English as well. You are reading technical documents, you are reading technical specifications, you are reading magazines, technical magazines, you are trying to translate some of the technical words for your career episodes, and therefore, and you're writing a lot. So you're actually practicing writing, you're practicing your reading, you could read out loud, then you can practice your listening as well. And if you practice with somebody else, and then you can have a conversation. So actually I think it's a very good idea to start your validation process before you actually have your English test done. So it will certainly help when you do your English test. And also when you do your English test, you will probably have most of your validation process, the reports and documentation already finished. So it means that, like me, when I did my English test, soon after I finished my validation documentation, etc., and I applied straight away to Engineers Australia. So I didn't really have that gap between the English test and the validation. I'll probably in my live sessions next week, because I'm planning to do a few live sessions next week. I'll probably go back to some of the questions because there's so many questions, and I thank you guys again a lot for your questions. About experiences. So somebody asked me, is work experience necessary? No, it's not. Engineers Australia does not really require work experience. You can start your validation process and do your validation process without work experience. You can use just academic experience as part of your validation, as long as your academic experience is relevant, and certainly you did a good job when you were studying and you can demonstrate all the 16 competencies. Unfortunately, a lot of people, they didn't really take very seriously the university. They didn't really do very well, and now they want to use that academic experience as part of the career episodes, and they find themselves in trouble because the academic experience was not very good. There's a very good question here that can relate to you guys, I think. I am a mechanical engineer, but I have a few years in civil construction. Can this impact my validation process? Well, actually, potentially it could, because if you are applying as a mechanical engineer, and then if you decide to use your work experience when you were doing civil construction, it's most probably that you are not going to address the competencies required for a professional mechanical engineer. So obviously, they gotta be whatever category, occupational category you apply for, is gotta match with the experiences that you are going to write, either academic or work experience. This question here is a very common question that comes from Brazilian engineers. It could come from other Colombian. Yeah, actually there is one similar question from a Colombian engineer. I'll read out the Colombian first. My experience in Colombia as an engineer has been in the area of quality control, and I have also worked as a university teacher. Can I use this experience as career episodes? And the other question similar to this is, I'm a civil engineer and worked implementing quality systems in a building company. Can I use this experience as a career episode? Sorry. Well, that's what I say, that is a bit subjective. You would think that you could be using, let's say that you're a civil engineer and then or mechanical engineer, and you worked in a company to implement quality control or implementing quality system, and you were employed as an engineer to do that. But when it comes to Australia, it's more likely that those experiences, they don't match the ANZ SEO occupation definition. So if you have implemented a quality system and then you try to validate your qualifications as a civil engineer, it may not work. All right, I'll just check if I have anybody requesting to be part of the live session. Anybody that would like to be part of the live session? I believe that there is a button that you can request. We've got another 12 minutes before the live finishes in Instagram. So anybody put a hand up to share the screen with me, and then we can discuss the case. If nobody is willing to be in the live session, I will keep going with the questions. But I really would like somebody. Hi Diego, how are you? Thanks for joining. I really would like to have somebody to share the screen with me, and then we can discuss the case. I know that you guys are shy, but you don't need to. I'm also a shy person, and I'm here in front of you guys. If you are live with me, let's just pretend it's just you and me. Nobody else is going to say anything. But it's a good opportunity. 15 minutes of free consulting. If I was going to charge these 15 minutes, it was going to cost you about $75. So I'm giving away $75 so we can discuss online. Not that I charge, but because I don't charge, but if I was to charge. So anybody that would like to be, if not, we'll keep going with the questions. Just check if anybody put a hand up. Nobody yet. So if you change your mind while I answer the questions. If you change your mind, just press the button there, or put in the comments me, and then I know that you would like to be in the live session, and then we can interact. So I'll keep going with the question and answers, and then somebody wants, I will interrupt. The other topic is about expiry date. So a few questions there. If everything goes as planned, I will need to validate my diploma to add points to my girlfriend process. In this case, does it matter when I validate it? Does it expire? So the question is about, is there any expiry date for the Engineers Australia assessment in order to apply for permanent residency? Well, I cannot give advice in migration, but I can talk about the validation, and I can talk about the expiry date of the validation. So once you get validated with Engineers Australia, there's no expiry date. Once you validate it, you validate it. You will get a letter from Engineers Australia. Obviously, that letter has a date, and what can happen is that what Engineers Australia have in their website is that the Department of Home Affairs, if your letter is older than 2 years, they may ask you to get an updated letter. And for that, you just need to email Engineers Australia. I'll put here because Engineers Australia, they're very, very helpful. So if you send member services at Engineers Australia, engineersaustralia.org.au. So that's an email, member services at engineersaustralia.org.au. Send them a request to administration fee, but the validation does not have an expiry date. The other question is about job. That's a very interesting area. So the question was, what's the possibility to get a job after the qualification validation? So again, that's a very good question. Thank you very much. And I said that already many times. A lot of companies, they don't actually ask you for your validation qualification. Sorry, your qualification validation. They don't ask you, oh, can you produce your Engineers Australia qualification validation? That was probably about 10 or 15 years ago. Nowadays, because of the high number of supply of engineers in the market, every time that you advertise a position, there are a lot of engineers applying. So companies now, they can choose from a broad range of applicants which ones they want. And certainly, if you have your qualification validated, it's going to be a point of difference. If you don't have your qualification validated, companies will do the natural thing. They will compare your situation with another engineer, and they'll say, well, this one does not really have the qualification validated. This engineer has. So if you were put in the shoes of the company, put in the shoes yourself in the shoes of the recruiter. If you were the recruiter, if you have a final decision between somebody that does not have the qualification validated and somebody that has the qualification validated, and they all pretty much the same level, which one would you choose? Well, I recruit a lot of engineers and project managers. It's actually as I work for the government, nowadays we actually ask engineers to be registered professional engineers of Queensland. So they gotta be CPA depending on the position. Obviously, if we're recruiting graduates, we don't require to be CPA, but certainly to be a member of Engineers Australia. Fair, sorry, I don't know if it's Fernanda, but Fair is asking, do they answer questions about career episodes in this email? Obviously, that depends on the question. If you send the whole career episode in the email, they may not answer. But if you have a question, a brief question, they might. So every time that I write them questions, obviously I'm not sending them career episodes. I'm asking questions about this profession here. Is it under this particular code or is not in this code? If the person was a technician, can they use that experience in the career episode as a professional engineer, etc., etc. So they answer those questions. So, but if you send the career episode and you're asking if the career episode is all right, most likely that they will reply saying, well, that's for the national assessor to say. So once you submit, you'll get a feedback. So, but Engineers Australia, they're very good. They answer all the questions that I sent. So it's really, really good. So saying here that I've got about 55 seconds. So I would like to thank you guys very much. And this Saturday, 10 a.m. Brisbane time, I will have my live webinar. So 10 a.m. Brisbane time, I'll have my webinar. If you haven't registered to the workshop yet, go to my bio, and then the first button or the second button is to register to the 11 days of engineering qualification workshop, and then you will be able to participate in my free webinar. And I will be talking more about those questions. I will be talking about if I'm going to open or not a new mentoring group. A lot of people, they're asking me if I'm going to open a new group. I may or may not. Looks like that I will, because there's a lot of people interested. So go to my bio if you haven't registered yet. I would like to thank you guys very much for your participation. We're 1 hour. You guys hero. You guys awesome. Amazing guys.